I stood there, watching my sister-in-law unwrap the keys to a brand new $70,000 SUV, laughter echoing through the room like a victory song I wasn't invited to. My hand trembled slightly as I opened my envelope. A crisp $5 bill fluttered out. That was their message. "This is all you're worth." I didn't cry, I didn't argue. I smiled, walked out, and made a phone call. "Let's finalize the deal," I said. Within a week, I owned a $40 million hotel. And when I sent out the grand opening invites, guess who got theirs in the mail, along with their same $5 bill? The dining room glowed with the soft light of crystal chandeliers, the kind of warmth that made everything look prettier than it really was. I'd spent 3 weeks designing my dress for the night. Deep navy silk, hand-stitched embroidery along the seams, a subtle nod to old Hollywood glamour. I wore it for her, my mother-in-law, who once said I dressed too sharp for a married woman. Tonight, I softened the edges, played the part. I brought a 300 bottle of Bordeaux, her favorite. I even arrived 10 minutes early. "You look stunning, Claire," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes scanned me like I was a dinner guest who'd stayed too long. My father-in-law called me the creative genius of the family. Amber, sitting nearby with her perfect curls and practiced innocence, let out a little laugh. I smiled politely, fingers tightening around my wine glass. The evening unfolded like a symphony written for someone else. Toasts, stories, memories that excluded me. When it was time for gifts, the room fell quiet with theatrical anticipation. My in-laws rolled in a white Lexus SUV, wrapped in a giant red bow, right into the driveway. The applause was immediate. Amber clapped her hands over her mouth, squealing, "No way! Is this real?" Her husband, my brother-in-law, pulled her in for a kiss. Everyone stood, phones out, flashing. "Amber's been such a light in our lives," my mother-in-law said, beaming. "She's been like a daughter to me." A second later, someone handed me a small envelope. I opened it. Inside was a crisp $5 bill and a sticky note. "Buy yourself something sweet, honey. You deserve it." I felt something tighten in my throat. Not grief, not rage. Something colder, something permanent. I looked up. No one was watching me. They were too busy celebrating Amber and her car. I folded the bill once, then again until it was the size of a coin, and slid it into my purse. "I'm just going to take a quick call," I said quietly, and stepped out into the cool night air. The garden was empty, washed in shadows and string lights. I didn't cry. I didn't even curse. I stood under a lemon tree that smelled faintly of spring and remembered all the times I was told I wasn't quite right for this family. There was the Thanksgiving I offered to cook and was told, "Let's not get too creative with tradition." The time I landed a National Design Award and my father-in-law replied, "Is that something people in your field celebrate?" The time Amber forgot my birthday and my mother-in-law said, "Don't take it personally, sweetie. She's got a lot on her plate." I stayed silent, every single time, until now. Back inside, the laughter had grown louder. Through the glass doors, I saw Amber hugging my mother-in-law, tears in her eyes. I saw the way they looked at her like she was gold. And I realized something that struck me so hard I almost laughed. They never saw me, not really. They saw my ambition as arrogance, my independence as disrespect, my success as selfishness. I had made peace with that before, but $5? No. I pulled out my phone and opened a new post. Even empires start with sense. No hashtags, no explanation, just that. Then I dialed a number I hadn't used in 4 years. "Claire?" the voice on the other end asked, surprised. "Everything okay?" I stared up at the house, the silhouettes moving inside like shadows in a play I didn't audition for. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's finalize the deal." There was a pause. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Silence. Then, "All right. You just bought yourself a kingdom." I hung up. I didn't go back inside. I didn't say goodbye. I walked to my car, the one with a cracked side mirror and 2 coffee receipts on the floor, and drove away without turning on the music. Just the sound of the engine and the low hum of something new building inside me. Not anger, not revenge, clarity. I had no war to declare, but I had a battlefield in mind. The deal moved faster than I expected. Within 72 hours, I'd signed the initial term sheet. I didn't tell anyone, not my husband, not my closest friends, especially not my family-in-law. Silence, I'd learned, was the sharpest weapon. 4 years ago, I co-founded a luxury hospitality startup. It was going to be a revolution, sustainability-driven, design-forward, rooted in experience rather than status. We called it Eden. For a while, it soared. We had meetings with global architects, ran projections that rivaled legacy chains, even secured a development plot in Manhattan. And then, one dinner changed everything. My mother-in-law brought up Eden between spoonfuls of bisque. "You're playing too big, Claire. It's not stable. You should focus on family." She said it sweetly, like advice, not a demand. But the next week, my father-in-law pulled funding. So did his friends. So did my husband. They called it protecting me. I called it what it was, sabotage. I sold my shares for a quarter of what they were worth. The other founders kept the name but scrapped the original concept. The site in Manhattan remained untouched. Ghosted. Until now. I opened my laptop and clicked into an old Dropbox folder marked Do Not Delete. Inside were the renderings. Eden Hotel, as we envisioned it. Open concept lobbies. Greenery pouring from balconies. Rooms that felt like sanctuaries. I tapped a number I hadn't dialed since the day I walked away. It rang once. "Claire?" the man answered. His voice had barely changed. "Well, damn, I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again." "Hi, Jude," I said. "Is it Eden?" "It is." He whistled low. "You still got the guts for it?" "I've got more than that. I've got a reason." A pause, then a laugh. "That's dangerous. You free for a call?" "Now." He turned on video. He was in Dubai, I could tell from the skyline behind him, sleek and glowing. Jude Nakano was no ordinary friend. We met at an accelerator program in Tokyo. He went on to lead Lucent Tier, one of the most selective private investment syndicates in Asia. He leaned forward. "Do you still have the design files?" "I do." "And the vision? The story?" "Sharper than ever." He smiled. "Let me ask you one thing." He adjusted his glasses. "Was Eden ever really for them?" I didn't hesitate. "No, it was never meant for them. It was meant for me." 3 days later, I executed the quietest sale of my life. 30% of my current company, my pride and stability, transferred into liquid. After taxes and legal, I had just under $10 million. I didn't blink. I knew what I was doing. While everyone else was at a family brunch that weekend, celebrating Amber's new promotion at a candle company, I was on a Zoom call with Takashi Yamada, an eccentric Japanese venture capitalist with a track record of betting on outcasts. "I don't want another luxury hotel," he said. "I want a cathedral of redemption. I want people to come in with shame and leave with spine." "You'll get that," I said, "and more. If I match your 10, you better burn down every expectation and build something immortal." Deal. I ended the call and walked straight into my old storage unit. It smelled like cedar and memory. In the corner was the vision board I'd made the first year I married into the family. Magazine cutouts, textures, quotes. My mother-in-law had once picked it up and dropped it into the trash can. "You're not 22 anymore, Claire," she'd said. "Dreams are cute, but real women manage expectations." I dug it out that day, wiped off the dust, and carried it home. I laid it out on my office floor, piece by piece. Then I added a new photo, one of the $5 bill, taped it dead center. Next to it I wrote, "Start here." I worked through the night, my old Eden designs transformed, taller, bolder, unapologetically mine, a temple of grace and fury. I reimagined the lobby as a gallery of stories, quotes etched into the walls, written by women who were dismissed, ridiculed, minimized, each suite named after a woman the world had underestimated. This wasn't just a hotel, it was a reckoning. I sat back in my chair as the sun started to rise. A golden beam cut across the vision board, hitting the $5 bill like it was a sacred relic. "They threw away my dream," I whispered. I smiled slow and sharp. "I turned it into a blueprint for their ruin." The old Montrose Hotel still smelled of rust, disuse, and forgotten elegance. Its bones were good: Italian marble floors, a chandelier older than my in-laws' marriage, and stained glass skylights hiding under a decade of grime. It was where I'd once stood in a white coat, holding an umbrella, as my then-boyfriend dropped to one knee in the pouring rain. I said yes. The hotel closed a year later. Now I owned it. I had the paperwork filed under CM Holdings LLC. Quiet. Untraceable. The renovations moved fast. I didn't need glam, just function. The ballroom was restored, the garden retamed, the lighting calibrated to make the walls glow like gold, and the air feel expensive. I sent out invitations 6 weeks in advance. An evening to remember, a family reunion in honor of Harold and Eliza's 40th wedding anniversary. Signed anonymously. RSVP required, limited seats. They all came. My mother-in-law wore her signature navy gown with pearls, arm looped through my father-in-law's. Amber arrived in a silky champagne dress and heels that cost half a mortgage. My husband, ex-husband now, but they didn't know that yet, walked in 5 minutes late, pretending confidence. No one asked who organized the event. The staff played their roles perfectly. Hostesses smiled without revealing anything. Guests were ushered into a candle-lit dining room with ceiling-high mirrors and a grand piano playing something soft and aching. I watched them from the surveillance room on the second floor. I knew each of their faces intimately, how my mother-in-law's brow furrowed when she didn't feel in control, how Amber's smile thinned when attention shifted. I could hear my father-in-law say, "Whoever planned this spared no expense." Impressive. They toasted. They dined. They speculated. And then dessert was served. The lights dimmed slowly, almost imperceptibly. The music faded. A single spotlight hit the far wall, now a screen. Static flickered. A soft voice played. "Claire's a lovely girl, sure, but she's ornamental, pretty, good on paper. You can't trust someone like that with real responsibility." My mother-in-law's voice. Clear. I'd recorded it during a lunch I wasn't supposed to attend, sitting 2 tables over unnoticed. Next, my husband. "She's intense, a little too much. She doesn't know when to shut it off." Then Amber. "I mean, if she's so successful, why is she always trying to prove it?" The footage cut to silent home videos. Me in the background, setting tables, holding someone's crying child, smiling too hard, always on the sidelines, always underestimated. Then came the final clip, a still frame. Me, ill. Standing backstage in a tailored black suit, no makeup, hair tied back, just my face, steady, focused. And then I walked out, onto the actual stage, into the room. Gasps broke the silence like glass shattering on marble. Amber knocked over her wine glass. My mother-in-law stiffened, fork frozen midair. My father-in-law blinked, as if trying to recalibrate the world. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I'm Claire Matthews," I said, slowly, clearly. "Welcome to my hotel." No one clapped. I could hear someone's breath catch. "This is Eden," I continued, "a place for clarity, for transformation, for truth." Someone whispered, "Is this a joke?" I turned toward the screen, which now displayed the words $5 in looping gold text. "No," I said, "it's a response." I let that sit. "You gave me $5 and a lesson in how small you think I am. Tonight, I give you a seat in a place built by the woman you tried to shrink." Amber stood. "Claire, this isn't fair." "You're right," I interrupted. "Fair would have been honesty, respect, family." My mother-in-law rose next, voice shaking. "You humiliated us." "No," I said, stepping forward. "I exposed you." They left quickly, stumbling over heels and egos, trailing the stench of old power losing its grip. Some guests followed, unsure of the script. Others stayed seated, eyes wide, uncertain if they were watching theater or revelation. I watched them go, then turned back to the remaining room. This hotel, I said, was born from $5 and everything they never saw in me. Silence. Then applause. Not thunderous, but enough. Eden didn't just open, it erupted. Within days of the unveiling, images of the interior began circling design blogs. The press called it a sanctuary forged in silence. Every detail was deliberate. The lobby was carved in stone and brass, minimalist but grounded. The scent, white jasmine and ink, was custom made. No art hung on the walls. Instead, etched quotes covered the surfaces, lit from behind like scripture. Each suite bore the name of a woman once dismissed: Marie Curie, Britney Spears, Monica Lewinsky, Frida Kahlo, Anita Hill. Guests whispered about it in elevators. Have you seen the Virginia Woolf suite? The journals in the drawer? Did you notice the chandelier in the Gloria Steinem lounge? It's shaped like a cage, with the door open. I walked the halls in the early mornings, barefoot on marble. Housekeeping nodded respectfully, never breaking the rhythm. The staff knew the mission. We weren't here to serve opulence. We were here to restore dignity. The media came next. Forbes ran a cover feature. The woman who turned $5 into a movement. I didn't give them the full story. I didn't need to. The contrast was already speaking for me. One photo showed Amber in her white SUV. The next, me in a crisp black suit, standing in the Eden courtyard beneath a plaque that read, "Not all inheritance is worth keeping." Requests flooded in from women around the world. Survivors of corporate betrayal, daughters left out of wills, creatives laughed out of rooms. They didn't want pity, they wanted clarity. Eden became their altar. But I wasn't finished. 3 weeks after the family dinner, I sent out personal letters to each member of my husband's family. No threats, no monologues, just an envelope. Inside was the dinner bill, $7,500, and a detailed receipt. Every dish, every drink, every slice of truth. Beneath it, I included a folded emergency exit map from the hotel. Circled in red ink was the phrase, "In case of sudden self-awareness." The silence from them was expected. What wasn't expected was what I discovered next. A whisper, a tip. Amber's SUV hadn't been purchased with savings or love. It had been funneled through a nonprofit account under a shell donation titled Community Wellness Initiative. A slush fund built on fake invoices and insider sign-offs. The money was meant for children's education programs. She'd used it to finance her image. The documents landed in my inbox with no note, just a file marked karma.pdf. I didn't need to do anything dramatic. No lawsuit, no call to confront her. I packaged the file, verified its content, and forwarded it to a journalist I trusted, one who specialized in white-collar charity fraud. The story ran 2 days later. Headline: Candlelight Darling caught in $250K fund misuse scandal. Amber's picture was front and center, lip gloss perfect, smile mid-blink. I didn't flinch. I didn't gloat. I just kept walking. Later that night, as I sipped tea on the Eden rooftop, the city stretching silver around me, my assistant brought over a thin folder. "It's from the publisher," she said. They confirmed the title. I opened the cover. The $5 Woman. I laughed, soft and deep. Everything had changed. The world thought I'd built a hotel, but really, I'd built a machine. Not for profit, for memory, not for luxury, for reckoning. I leaned back in the chair, watching lights flicker across the skyline. They gave me $5. I gave them a scandal worth $5 million. I thought victory would feel like peace. Instead, it felt like static, always buzzing at the edge of silence, refusing to fade. Nights became endless. I tossed between Egyptian cotton sheets in the penthouse suite, eyes wide open at 3 a.m., staring at shadows that stretched across the ceiling like accusations. Sometimes I swore I saw her, my mother-in-law, standing at the foot of my bed, whispering that I was still nothing but decoration. I blinked and she was gone, but the voice stayed. Sleep abandoned me. In its place came visions, my phone vibrating with phantom calls, papers on my desk rearranged, though I never touched them. I checked locks twice, sometimes 3 times. I told myself it was stress, but the truth was harsher. Power was changing me. I had carved out a sanctuary, but it was built on wounds, and wounds don't heal when you keep reopening them. My closest friend, Lila, confronted me one afternoon in the Uden Garden Cafe. She watched me stir a cappuccino without drinking it, her expression tight. "You're not building hotels anymore, Claire," she said softly. "You're building monuments to pain." Her words cut deeper than my in-laws ever did. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that Eden was never about revenge. It was about respect. But in the silence that followed, even I didn't believe it fully. I was chasing ghosts, memorializing every bruise until the hotel itself became one giant scar. Driving back that night, I asked myself a question I'd never dared to voice. Am I still fighting them, or am I just fighting myself? The echo of that thought followed me everywhere, into board meetings, into design reviews, into the mirror where I saw not a victor, but a stranger. Then the cracks began to show publicly. One of my cornerstone investors pulled out. No explanation, just a terse email. "We're reallocating resources, effective immediately." I knew what it meant. They didn't want to be tied to me anymore. The scandal around Amber had brought attention, but now whispers turned. Was Eden a business? Or a vendetta dressed in velvet? Headlines shifted tone. Eden, symbol of empowerment or obsession? Is Matthews fueling healing or division? The same journalists who praised me last month now questioned my motives. I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer myself. The breaking point came with London. We had a deal to secure a historic property on the Thames, set to become Eden's first international expansion. Contracts drafted, architects lined up. But 2 days before signing, the partners walked away. Too much noise, they said, too much risk. I sat in the Eden ballroom that evening, the chandeliers glowing above me, the marble floors cold under my heels. A conference was underway, hundreds of women filling the space, sharing stories of survival, resilience, reinvention. They still believed. They still saw Eden as a beacon, not a wound. Their voices rose, a chorus of trust I no longer felt I deserved. One woman, no older than 20, stood at the mic. "I came here because no one at home believed me, but when I walked into this hotel, I believed in myself." The room applauded. She caught my eye. She smiled. It was the kind of smile I hadn't felt in years, honest, uncalculated, free. Something inside me cracked. My throat tightened. My chest burned. And for the first time in 4 years, I cried. Not silent tears hidden in the shower, not angry ones pressed into a pillow, but raw, unstoppable sobs that bent me forward in the chair. The women didn't stop talking. They didn't point. They kept sharing their truths as if my tears were just another part of the story. Maybe they were. Maybe this was the only way to break free. From them, from Eden, from myself. For 4 years, I had not allowed myself to weep. I thought tears were weakness. That night, I learned they were release. The morning after the breakdown, I woke with swollen eyes and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Eden could no longer be just mine. It couldn't stay a weapon, a mirror of my wounds. It had to outgrow me. Within weeks, I announced a restructure. 40% of profits would funnel into initiatives for women locked out of opportunity. Single mothers denied credit, immigrants overlooked for housing, artists silenced by gatekeepers. Eden became not just a hotel, but a foundation, a channel. The business press called me reckless. Guests called me visionary. For the first time, I didn't care about the labels. The launch of the new initiative coincided with a workshop series I titled Respect Isn't Inherited. I invited leaders, survivors, even skeptics. And yes, I invited my in-laws. No cameras, no press, just a circle of chairs in the ballroom where my revenge had first unfolded. When I took the microphone, the room went silent. I didn't posture. I didn't rehearse lines. I just spoke. Respect, I said, is not gifted in envelopes. It is not wrapped in bows. It is not passed down like property. It is earned, chosen, lived. Hands rose for questions. The very first came from a woman in the back, her voice steady but curious. Claire, if you could go back, would you still buy this hotel? I smiled. I looked around at the women, the mirrors, the chandeliers, at the echoes of who I once was. No, I said. Then I paused. I would have bought it sooner. The room erupted in applause. Months later, I began my exit, quietly, deliberately. I assembled a council of female advisors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to guide Eden's future. They would take it further than I ever could, free from the gravity of my personal history. I didn't need to be the face anymore. I needed to be the foundation. The day I signed over management, Amber appeared. No cameras, no dramatics, just her, standing in the garden courtyard. Her eyes carried exhaustion, not envy. She didn't apologize. I didn't demand it. You did it, she said simply. I nodded, and you survived it. We didn't hug, we didn't linger, but something shifted in the air between us. Not reconciliation, not love, just recognition. A quiet treaty between two women who had been forced to perform roles neither of us chose. That night, I climbed to the Eden rooftop. The city pulsed below, horns, lights, 1,000 lives overlapping. I leaned against the rail, the wind cool against my face. For the first time, I felt no urge to prove, no voice whispering doubts. Not even the shadows of my past family lingered. The silence was whole, not empty, safe. I thought of the beginning, the envelope, the $5 bill, the laughter I wasn't included in. I thought of how far I had carried that moment, how it had nearly consumed me, how it had finally transformed me. They gave me $5, I whispered into the night. The wind carried the words away, scattering them across the skyline. I built the kind of silence they can't buy. And for the first time, that was enough.